goal is to make money, let's say your attainment objective is X, why would anybody get into a profession with a cap on earnings? I never got it. I mean, basically, when I figured out in network marketing, nobody could stop me. I said, wait a minute, what happens if I get to like 40,000 a month or 50,000 a month? Because in the old days, I couldn't even relate to that. You know, a lot of people watching this will think, 5,000 a month, my life at work. I couldn't even relate. Well, you keep going. I said, but wait a minute, don't they stop you somewhere? No. So why would any entrepreneur with aspirations of wealth select a profession with a ceiling over one with no cap? I don't get it. To me, it's almost like the people who don't do network marketing are people who have duh-outs. You know what a duh-out is? That's when a seemingly rational adult, and sitting all alone in the privacy of his own living room with nobody around, all of a sudden just stares back up into space and goes, duh, and drools on his sweater. Those are the only people that shouldn't get into network marketing.
Right.
If people don't do our industry, I wonder if maybe sometimes they don't have duh-outs because there's no cap. And I don't mean that in a disparaging way. I just don't get it.
Right.
I don't see any other option, especially in tumultuous times. I've offered over, and I did the O'Reilly factor one day only because people said, Yarnell, you're nuts to go into the no spin zone. This guy will tear you to shreds. No, he didn't. He was a great journalist because I didn't spin anything. He said, what do? I sell soap and shampoo. Well, that's a great, everybody uses that, don't they? He said, how do you do it? Well, I've just talked to a lot of people, and basically, I will go on any television program or any program like this anytime, and I will debate against the most educated academic from any field, including economics, resolve that network marketing is the best element of all elements of capitalism, resolve that network marketing is the only bastion of capitalism for thinking adults, and I will win that debate every time. You know what my problem is? Nobody will debate me.
Really?
No. I've offered to go on Larry King.
Right.
Now, I'm a nobody. Why would he want me, when you have people who sing? But the point I'm making is nobody wants to debate that. People want to put down our industry until somebody like me who's willing to challenge their insanity is willing to do it in a large domain. They won't touch me with a 10-foot pole because they know I'm right. The rest of it's just garbage. Network marketing, assuming you pick a legitimate company, is the only industry. Now, I believe that. The others are, in my opinion, stupid. Literally irrational. I told a friend of mine, I got really close to one of my close friends, a lawyer, Mr. I said, the only problem with your profession is 99% of you lawyers give the other 1% a bad name. But I said, you could transfer $1 billion to my checking account tomorrow. I'm not going into law, and I'm not going into medicine, and I'm not because I've got the best field in the world, and I'm that adamant about it. And so far, nobody will accept the challenge to debate me on that matter.
I think those times are changing. I'll bet you in the next 2 to 5 years we're going to get a lot of people talking about our profession.
We are, and not derogatorily. What I'm saying is nobody from traditional capitalism will try to out-argue me when I say networking is the most credible, ethical, authentic profession. That's what I'm saying. I believe it is. And you're right, more people are going to be talking.
Yeah.
Largely because of the process of elimination. What else are they going to do?
Yeah, times are changing.
Yes.
Big time.
Big time.
I love that. Well, here's one of my favorite questions. I'm a big fan of defining moments, right? You go through your career, you go through your life. There are these times, and I'm sure you've had dozens of them. I've had over a dozen of them. But there's a defining moment where something happens and it fundamentally changed you. You hit some obstacle, some barrier, something happened, and something changed forever inside your heart, inside your head. And I'm sure while I was just saying this, one popped into your mind, one defining moment in your career popped into your brain. What was that defining moment for you?
was running off a cliff in a paraglider because I had a horrible fear of heights. And I was so astounded at the peripheral, the ancillary benefits of that phobia overcoming. Everything in my life began to change when I took paragliding lessons and I climbed up on the mountain and I ran off because I was so mortified by heights. And after I accomplished that, everything else started changing for me. And this was a long time ago. This was in the 70s when they first came out with the sport. Interestingly enough, remember me telling you, mentors are accessible? I found out about this Dr. Albert Bandura at Stanford University, who's head of the psychology department. And he had written 10 PhD level textbooks, one called Self-Efficacy that I just love. I wanted him to mentor me. I wanted to understand what causes peak performance. So I called him at Stanford. He answered, got on the phone. I said, how much would you charge me for a day? I want to bring my wife and daughter over. I'm going to spend some quality time with you. He said, well, nobody's ever asked me that. I said, well, wait a minute. You're head of the psychology department. Here's a guy who has measured peak performance and analyzed in the laboratory of Stanford for 30 years. What differentiates billionaires from mediocre people? He knows at a deep academic level what these criteria are. So I wanted to learn. So he said, well, I don't know even a price to set. And I gave him a figure. He said, oh, that's more than generous. I said, great. When can we come? And he told me we went over there. Interestingly enough, one of his primary causes of greatness was overcoming phobias. And he learned it when he developed a therapeutic process for helping snake phobics. They'd come in and they'd be literally the kind of people that if they looked through a glass and saw a snake 100 feet away, they'd get cold sweats. A horrible phobia, immobilizing. He taught them a therapy that got them over their fear, and he made an interesting discovery. In subsequent interviews, when they would come back to for post-therapeutic follow-up, he'd say, so how are you doing with your, are you still over your, oh yeah, snakes don't scare me. Oh, and by the way, I joined Little Theater, and I'm running for Congress next year. And you know that bum I was married to? I kicked him out, married my husband. He said, what we learned was, in helping them overcome their biggest fear, which for them was snakes, the ancillary benefits were staggering. It changed their whole world. So I can honestly say to you, and I didn't know this at the time until I met Dr. Bandura, but the defining moment for me was when I picked the #1 fear, and most of us are born, I think, with a fear of heights. When I overcame that, everything changed. It was almost like, well, if I can do this, I can do that. So I tell people, especially young people all the time, isolate your biggest fear. Find yourself a person who's a professional in that domain who can help you overcome that fear and face it head on. Because if you can do that, if you can run off a 7,008-foot mountain with a paraglider when you're afraid of heights, you will not be afraid for people to reject you when you prospect them. That domain will be no longer fear-inducing. You know? So for me, rejection, everybody hates rejection. I don't even care. But that was the defining moment. And I don't mean to kickstart my mouth, but if I could pass that one notion on to people all over the world, isolate your biggest fear and face it and overcome it and watch what happens to the rest of your life. It's scary. Scary.
In a good way.
In a positive way.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, it really works.
I love it.